So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a review of what we were learning last week that's going to help us with today's assignment. So today's assignment is going to be one that we're going to be doing in groups in our breakout rooms. And then that's the screenshot that we're going to take to put into our notebook for today. So the main concept is, how does energy move through the ecosystem? And then how is that reflected in biomass? You might remember from last week's lecture that energy is stored by plants. They catch the sunlight, and then the consumers eat the plants, right? The primary consumer eats the plant, but it gets much less energy, right? We had called it the 10% rule, meaning that the grasshopper only gets 10% of the energy that the plants have. Why? Because the plants use that energy to live and to grow, right? And then the grasshopper only passes on 10% of this energy to the next level because the grasshopper uses the energy to live and grow. So the mouse gets less energy. So we had this energy pyramid, right? And the further away you get from the plants, the less energy is available. Now, because each trophic level has less energy, what happens? You get less mass. You get less mass when you have less energy, right? So as I was saying, as the energy decreases, the amount of mass decreases. What does that mean? Why does it decrease? Because there's less energy for those organisms to build with. So the plants, they have all this energy so they can build all of these plants. And then the fish that eat the plants, they have less energy, so they have less energy to build fish, for them to grow and for them to make their babies. And then these big fish that eat the little fish, they have less energy. So again, they have less energy that they can use to build themselves and to build their babies. So the amount of energy at each trophic level is going to dictate how much energy is in that, or how much matter is in that trophic level. So the tertiary consumers tend to have the smallest populations. And again, as a review from last week, I said there's always going to be like thousands of zebra, and there's going to be hundreds of lions, right? There's going to be thousands of gazelles. There's going to be hundreds of cheetahs, right? So there's always less predator than there are prey. All right, now here's where we're going to take the next big step. Now it's going to get complicated, like I was trying to say earlier. I'm not trying to scare you, but this is why I'm recording this lecture. All right, so this is a food web, and we talked about a food web before. And this is, maybe you saw this like in 6th grade or in elementary school or maybe in middle school. And it just shows you like who eats who, right? And you're thinking, oh, that's not so complicated. Who eats who, right? In high school now, we're asking you to step up and look at the energy moving from level to level. That's, like I said, that's why it's going to get tricky. So now I laid in this model, these arrows. Okay, so that you know, like I, IV, and V, those are all Roman numerals. You guys all knew that, right? So the Roman numerals are representing these organisms, right? So I stands for the plant. II stands for the little fish that eats the plant. III is the big fish that eats the little fish. IV, right, is the crane that's eating the little fish. And V is the duck that eats the big fish, right? Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice underneath each one of these, I have written out the biomass of the organism at that level. So in this food web, there's 120 kilograms per kilometer squared of plants. Okay, and only 6 kilograms of little fish. Actually, that's supposed to be 68. Let me fix it now. 68 kilograms of little fish, right? And only 14 kilograms of the crane, and 12 kilograms of the big fish, and 6 kilograms of the duck. So you see, this is telling you how much biomass there is of each one. Okay? If you gathered up the mass, how much there is at each level. Okay, so that being said, I took away the rest of the food web to try to make it a little bit less complicated. Okay, so again, one more time, here's the plants, right? Organism number 1. And then here's the little fish, organism number 2. And then there's the mass, 68 kilograms per kilometer squared. And then here's the mass of the crane, organism number 4. Organism number 3, the big fish, 12 kilograms. And the duck, 6 kilograms. Again, you're going to notice that the producer has the most biomass. And again, this goes back to the energy pyramid. These guys have the most energy, so they make the most of themselves. Then the primary consumer, this guy's the first one to eat the plants. It has some energy, but it has less energy, so it has less mass, 68 kilograms, less than 102. And then look at whoever eats the fish, they have less mass because the fish loses energy as it stays alive. And over here, the one with the lowest energy is the tertiary consumer, right? So this is our primary consumer, right? It eats the plant, primero, primary. This one is eating the primero, so he's a second. This one's eating the primary, he's a second. But this one is eating a secondary consumer, he's a tertiary consumer. Okay, so that being said, now we're gonna look at it like this. I took away all the animals. Okay, so hopefully, if you're watching this on the video, you could always go backwards to see the connection. Okay, so the numbers are the same and the organisms are the same. I just took them away so that we can just focus on just the diagram. So now we just have a diagram. Organism number 1, organism number 2, organism 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and as we're looking at them, we still see their mass. Okay, so again, because I'm recording this and I don't want your names in the mix, I am going to move on to the next step. I'm going to hit pause here, answer some questions, and then I'll come back to recording the video. Okay, so at this point, we're going to use this model here with the arrows to help fill out a biomass pyramid. So you see this pyramid is a lot like the energy pyramid that we looked at before and the biomass pyramid. And you can see that the producer level is the biggest because we said that has the most energy, therefore it has the most mass. Then the primary consumer, secondary, and then the tertiary consumer is the smallest. All right, so I've been chatting with the students, and I'm going to record this without chatting with the students, but we did the same process. So the first question is, who is the producer, right? So the producers in the diagram would be at the bottom of the diagram, and they wouldn't be eating anybody. So notice that there's no arrows going into number 1 here. There's no arrows coming into Roman numeral 1. That means that this one doesn't have to eat anybody to stay alive. So if it doesn't have to eat anybody and it can make its own energy, guess what? It is an autotroph, meaning it is a producer. So I would put right here, Roman numeral 1, right? And I would put, it's the plants, right? And its mass is 102 kilograms per cubic or squared meter, kilometer, right? Squared kilometer. So that's the producers. Again, I know that because it's not eating anybody. It doesn't eat anybody. So it can make its own energy. It's a producer. Okay, primary consumer. Remember, primary consumers are eating the producer. So the energy from the producer is only going into one organism. It's only going to number 2. It's not going anywhere else. That energy goes from 1 to 2. So that means that 2 is our primary consumer. So the primary consumer was Roman numeral 2, and that is the little fish, right? And then its biomass is 68 kilograms per kilometer squared. Okay? Now let's look at the secondary consumers. The secondary consumers, they're the ones that eat the primary consumer, right? So this is the primary consumer. Its energy is going here and here to 3 and 4, right? So that means that they are the secondary consumers. So 3 was the big fish, right? And 4, Roman numeral 4, is the crane. That's a type of bird, right? And then their total biomass, if you combine them, is 14 plus 12, 26 kilograms per kilometer squared. All right. And last but not least, right? Ooh, it's overlapping. Let me move it over like that. Yeah, close enough. All right, perfect. It almost fit. All right. And the tertiary consumer eats the secondary consumer. So the secondary consumer was the big fish and the crane. The big fish is being eaten by number 5. So number 5 is the tertiary consumer, the duck. Right? And the duck's 6 kilograms per kilometer squared. All right, so that is how we will fill out a biomass pyramid based on this model. Okay, so now that we did this, here's where it's going to get scary. You ready? You, in your breakout rooms, are going to make a model for this diagram. This is what you're going to make a model of in your breakout rooms. You're going to screenshot it, and you're going to put it into your notebook so that it looks like this. Here's the same diagram. Here's the work you're going to do, and a table that you're going to make that looks like that. It's not going to look exactly like mine because you guys are going to use your own examples. But that's what we're about to do right now. Okay, so for today's screenshot, as I was just saying, the link to the assignment is on Classroom. So if you go to August 31st or September 1st, if you're watching it on Tuesday, your activity link is right here. This will take you to this spreadsheet document. So please join me on this document if you would. Okay. Now on this document, you're going to see an example. Hopefully when you open it, it'll take you to the example page first. Now on this example page, right, you'll see one that I did. So when I send you to your breakout rooms, you're going to notice down here it says group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. So you're going to pick your group and you guys are going to work there. So when you go to your breakout room, it's going to give you, it's going to say you're going to breakout room number 1 or breakout room number 2 or breakout room number 3. That's your group number. So then you go to your tab to do the work. But basically, this is how it works. You and your group, okay, can look at the directions that I put here. See these directions? Okay, so you should read the directions on the directions tab. All right, now you're not going to be writing on this. You're going to write on your tab. So when you read the directions, the first thing you need to do right here is to type your names. So type your names, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just type your last name. Last name should be good enough. Okay, there'll be up to 4 people in your group. And then you guys need to choose an ecosystem. So you guys can pick any ecosystem that you want. You just can't use my example. Okay, now let me show you. When you're looking at this model, similar to the one that we just did, the food web, you have to come over here and it's going to say organism number, right? So it's organism number 1. Let's look at organism number 1. Here it is. Hey, look, it's at the bottom. That's a hint, right? Nobody, it's not eating anybody. There's no energy coming into it. So that means that this must be a producer. So if I click producer, right, look what happened to the box. It changed to green. That's good. That means you did it right. If you come in here and you try to type something, right, that's not the right thing, it's going to tell you, oops, click on the little triangle, right? So yeah, you must hit the drop-down menu and pick the right answer. So if you pick the right answer, it will turn green. If not, it will stay red. Okay? So I don't want to do group 1's work. So first, you guys are going to identify each of the species by looking at them here and say, are they a producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, or tertiary consumer? You're going to label them. And then the next part here says, what's the biomass, right? So here you're going to type the number. So we said that number 1 was a producer, okay? Number 1 was a producer. And what's its biomass? 72,620, right? It says 72,620. So 72,620, bam, it turned green, right? You see that? So if you, as long as you type in the numbers here, these will turn green. Now, what I can't show you here is what you guys are going to do as a group. You guys are going to choose a ecosystem. So notice mine, I chose the kelp forest. You guys remember my sea otter story? So I chose the kelp forest. And then for each of these organism numbers, I gave it the name of something that lives in that ecosystem. Okay? And then I made the biomass numbers. Now see here, I faked the numbers. These numbers are not these numbers over here. I did that on purpose. So if you copy my numbers, then you're not going to get full credit. So make sure that you use these numbers from over here when you're doing your table. So you're going to, again, pick your own ecosystem as a group. Pick one. And then tell me about the plants and animals that live there. And then who's eating who, right? In your tab. So like for group 1, right? I don't know what their ecosystem is, right? And then the first one is a producer, so they have to give me the name of some kind of plant. Okay? And remember, they got the biomass from here. You must get the biomass from this food web. Now, notice that when I put numbers over here, like, let me put another number, right? And let me put a number right here. Notice that over here, the gray boxes are changing by themselves, right? Because over here, it's adding them up for you. So you don't have to add up how many producers there are. It's going to tell you. You don't have to add up the primary consumers. It's going to tell you right here. But in the end, you need to go back and type in the names of the animals and the total biomass. So see these biomass? I got them from here. So my producers total was 800. So I put 800 kilograms per kilometer squared, and I put the names of my producers that I had right here in this table. My primary consumers total was 150, and then these were my primary consumers, and I typed their names right here. Okay, so this is what you're going to do in your groups when I send you to the breakout room. When you're done, after you guys have filled out all of this table, right, and then filled out this pyramid, before you leave, you need to take your screenshots and put them in your notebook for today's work. And that will be it for today.